So, aside from all the recruiting stuff that's going on for National Signing Day today and college football playoffs and just about everything else that's going on in the college football world on that front, is the coaching carousel. Holy cow. It is bonkers this year. Um, Everybody except Penn State, I think, has hired a new coach. They might have to be stuck with the interim. I never understood why programs don't really. I don't know. I know it doesn't always work out, but I feel like some of these coordinators and assistant coaches are that for a reason. It's kind of the whole reason that if you lose your head coach, that's why they're there. So they always seem to always hire over those guys. But the coaching carousel has just been absolutely bananas this year. And this was I touched upon a little bit last week or whatever when I was talking about how Chip Kelly should not ever return to Oregon. We don't need him. And not necessarily for bad blood, but just the fact that we don't need him is more of the reason why than anything else regarding how he's perceived to have done Oregon and Oregon fans wrong. But the let's start with the Lane Kiffin stuff. This is such a weird circumstance with Lane Kiffin. Now, Lane Kiffin is a bit of an odd duck, for sure. And it seems that everywhere he goes, some form of drama is surrounding him. And there's so much to unpack here with Kiffin. It's crazy. I mean, this is part of not only the college football playoff, but the college football playoff, and then the recruiting, the transfer portal that they eventually close one window, and then obviously the coaching changes and stuff, is the reason why everyone is talking about changing the schedule of like the season and everything sort of surrounding that. And this is sort of why. Because we always lose our minds or whatever as fans and call it tampering when people do this with players when they enter the transfer portal. But it's kind of nothing when coaches do this. But then also coaches at the same time are forced to do this based on certain scheduling. It's like the recruiting schedules and the season schedules and buyouts and everything like that. It's just it's really it didn't have to be this crazy, but it did. Now I'm gonna start with Lane Kiffin and what he says, and let's say from the get-go, and assume that he's telling the truth, that he was given basically an ultimatum of, buy the Egg Bowl, tell us if you're staying or not. And if you aren't staying, you can't coach here anymore. So he was essentially being forced out if he was leaving this job. And if he wasn't leaving the job, then nothing was going on, right? And then he decided to take the LSU job eventually, and he didn't know in terms of he was working things out between LSU and Florida, so he was saying I don't know to the Ole Miss people because it was like, which side do I go on or do I stay? And then so it's like one of those things where, well, are you leaving? I don't know. the sort of assumption, though, is that you are leaving, you're just deciding where you're leaving to, and therefore the AD says, okay, well, pack your bags, you're not allowed back in the building type of thing. But then Lane says, no, I want to finish out this season. I got Ole Miss to this point. I want us to make a playoff run, finish the job. But Keith Carter, the athletic director, says, no, not possible. You're done here, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to. My team wanted me to stay for the rest of the season, so on and so forth. Let's assume that's true. And I'm not going to make a statement on whether that's true or not. I don't really know Lane Kiffin, whether he's a super honest guy and this is what happened, or if he's a pathological liar. This is all subjective to anyone else. But I'm going to start with the assumption that it's true. Now, let's fault Vince McMahon for all of his faults that he has. But one of the things that I heard a story about him growing up is that he would base, so if he hires a wrestler from another territory, or the indies, lower promotions, territories, that way, so on and so forth. He brings guys into the WWF and then eventually the WWE. His first moment of deciding whether it's a green or red flag to push these guys to championship status or not was this. And that was if they had gigs in their books. Let's say he hires this guy to, let's say he pursues this guy to go to the WWE in July. A month goes by and they finally come to terms for him to sign a contract with the WWE, but he's an indie wrestler or lower promotion wrestler or opposing territory promotion wrestler that has matches and events and everything booked to December. So you got 3 to 4 months before, or 3 to 4 months of gigs before he even has the opportunity to say, I can't take any more gigs anymore, I'm with a different promotion, or I'm stopping accepting gigs at this point. My calendar is full till December. After December, I haven't booked anything yet, so it's open. And if the wrestler says, all right, I'm at the WWE, screw the rest of those guys, I'm not showing up to any of those dates, I'll start in the ring at WWE tomorrow, it's over. Versus the wrestler that says, he goes to his other promotions and all the people that he has gigs with and says, hey, I'm signing up for the WWE after December. I am already signed up and committed to the dates that we have all the way until December. I will show up at these dates. I will fulfill my commitment. But after December 14th, after my calendar is done with you guys, I am no longer available for gigs. I will be starting to wrestle for the WWF or WWE at the time. Vince McMahon chooses that second wrestler to push to championship status or push higher in the company than the first wrestler. Because one, that wrestler is trustworthy, he is telling the truth, and he has loyalty to not just the company, but his commitments. So he is reliable in that way. That was something I took with me into the future, where I will tell people that I might have a new job or new gig with, I'm moving on, but I will fulfill the rest of my commitment to the team or the company or whatever till the end. And then I am moving on. But I'm not going to leave you hanging, basically. And if that is sort of the general professional courtesy, though, too. With independent contracting like I am, and then obviously with wrestlers, that courtesy is definitely more of a Scouts honor code than, say, at a corporation, W-2 corporation, where your stuff is in the record. So you turn in your 2-week notice in paper form. They have it in paper form. If you don't fulfill that duties, they can punish you in paper form as well. So there's an enforcement behind that Scouts honor code among thieves on the corporate level. But it's still, the corporations don't begrudge you if you say, I have my 2 weeks, but you know what? After a week, I'm actually done. I'm not going to show up anymore. You might not get a reference in your next job, but it's not something they're going to necessarily get too butthurt about. But obviously the professional courtesy is you give notice you're leaving, you'll fulfill through the notice end date, and then you're done. And so on the flip side, though, the company, or Ole Miss in this case, has the ability to say, you know what, actually, you're just fired, you're done. Or you can just be done today. You don't have to give us 2 weeks. That is also the flip side of professional courtesy as well. But again, that side of it is, that looks like your feelings are hurt. You're in your feelings. You're butthurt about someone leaving you, and so you think being the petty get back is either overloading them with work for those 2 weeks, or saying, no, you're done today. You don't quit. I fire you. Basically, type of thing. I'm not breaking up with you. You're breaking up with me. And so that's sort of what it seems like if Lane Kiffin is telling the truth. If he is telling the truth, and that's the case, he is trying to give the professional courtesy of fulfilling his commitment to Ole Miss as far as finishing out the season that he started. Maybe not necessarily breaking contract, but obviously if a coach leaves, there's probably something in the contract of, you're not breaching a contract by leaving for another job. So there's that professional courtesy there of fulfilling your previous made commitments all the way to the end. And then there's the side, obviously, the corporation sees butthurt at him for leaving, so they're not going to let him do that, and then give him that ultimatum. That basically uses whatever leverage that they don't have to flip it into any sort of possible leverage they do have. And if also Lane is telling the truth that there was no ultimatum given to the coaches like Nick Saban style when Nick Saban went to LSU, is you don't have a job if you don't come on the plane for me. He was saying that Ole Miss is probably going to get rid of you guys, and you won't have a job at LSU or Ole Miss if you don't get on the plane with me. I'll make sure you get a job at LSU. Then there's nothing you can really do about that. Lane took the high road and did everything that he could in the professional manner that he could, and Ole Miss just didn't reciprocate that. Now, there's the other side of it. If Lane is not telling the truth, and he played coy and shady with the program, and therefore the program's response was, well, get out of here then. You're not committed to this team. Why do you think you're going to be committed to us during the recruiting period and during the postseason when you have your foot and your mind already in with another program, and you're poaching the rest of the coaching staff, leaving us with nothing because you're a narcissist? That was the word that was consistently thrown around. Then that makes Lane Kiffin look immature and unprofessional. And they're sort of getting rid of that toxic person in their life. And if the players that are saying we didn't really want him to finish out the season, we're happy he's gone, aren't being histrionic and butthurt themselves and telling the truth, then it's definitely a good riddance moment. Now there's two things. There's one thing that my dad used to always say when I was a young kid. There's two sides to every story, and the truth is always somewhere in the middle. I'm thinking that especially with how fast they replaced Kiffin with the assistant head coach or whatever, or the defensive coordinator that became interim head coach, whoever, I can't remember who it was, that they already sort of knew that he obviously had one foot out the door. And I think Lane Kiffin long knew that he had one foot out the door too. So there was a plan in place by Ole Miss to make a quick replacement if he leaves. Maybe with the assumption that Lane Kiffin would not handle it very well, the situation. And I don't know if Lane Kiffin also just has this warped sense that it doesn't really matter, or that he handled it just fine because he was fired from USC on the tarmac outside of the team plane. So he's like, they don't give a crap about me. Why should I give a crap about them? That's the game, right? Those are the rules. Who knows? But I'm thinking it maybe has something to do with the program and athletic director as a whole knew things about Kiffin, that if Kiffin leaves, that they're going to say, all right, cut bait and move on. That's the best case scenario. And Kiffin's was, I'm trying to maintain this recent sort of view of me being a professional and a professionalism within coaching. And so I am going to leave, but I'm going to fulfill my commitment to the end of the season. And those two viewpoints clashed. And then they reacted terribly to those two viewpoints clashing. Because it says something that I think Charlie Weiss Jr. was able to come back and finish the season, and or come back and say, I'm actually not leaving, and they didn't give that same opportunity to Lane Kiffin. So I think it's a mishmash, crazy potion of everybody's. It's not mutually exclusive. It can be a mishmash potion of everybody's reactions and thought processes. But then there's also someone else to blame that no one is really looking at, and that is LSU. Because, and I don't know about Florida, but LSU definitely for sure was the one was like, if we're hiring you right now. And they gave their version of their ultimatum to Lane Kiffin as well. LSU's season is basically done. They're not going to the playoffs, so at best they have one game left in the season, a bowl game. I don't remember what their record ended up being. They have one game left. And I know recruiting's coming up, but at this point you fire Brian Kelly and you're coming back to basically square one of not having a coach. You're already in rebuild mode. They didn't think ahead enough to know that they're in rebuild mode the second they fired Brian Kelly. That's just the bottom line of it. So, what's the issue that if at best they have one game left in the season, to just wait till your season's over and then say we're going to wait till Ole Miss is, we'll hire you. You're hired. Sign the paperwork, blah, blah, blah. You're hired, whatever. We won't need you till after Ole Miss's season is over. Our season's over. We know Ole Miss's isn't. we're going to allow you to come to LSU once your commitments to Ole Miss have been fulfilled. But instead, they're like, nope, can you come now? And again, that's also the thing with the scheduling of like the recruiting. I don't remember if this is early signing day today. I think there's a chance to recruit. Did they close the spring window or the fall window transfer portal? I can't remember now. But here's the thing, like, you're wanting Kiffin to basically remake LSU in your own image. You might have to have a lackluster roster for a year and give Kiffin time to recruit and build LSU in the image that you're trusting him to build in. This year was already a loss to where you fired Brian Kelly mid-season. You have to accept the consequences of your actions in firing your coach as well. So it's just this weird mix of the schedule for the season on an NCAA level is terrible. LSU handled it terrible. Kiffin handled it terrible. And Ole Miss handled it terrible. Everyone else, every other team, Tulane, who was it? Tulane, North Texas, I believe. Everyone else in the coaching carousel handled it fantastically. They said, you're hired, we'll let you finish out the season and transition smoothly. And again, Lane Kiffin sort of has that reputation. But that's one aspect of the coaching carousel where every Duck fan was like, thank God that it hasn't touched us this year and this is the kind of chaos we're having. But luckily, Oregon is one of those teams that have handled it well on a program level because the coaching carousel with all the firings and hirings has finally touched grass in Eugene. As offensive coordinator, Will Stein is going to Kentucky. Congratulations to Will Stein and going to Kentucky as a head coach, an SEC head coach. I am looking forward to seeing what he can do, and good luck to him, more power to him. I know that Will Stein has been under the microscope in Oregon for some of his play calling, especially his lack of aggressiveness in bigger games. But overall, on an overall resume level, he has been a fantastic offensive coordinator, despite all the screams. If that's his biggest flaw, that is a great thing that we can all, if that's the biggest complaint and his biggest flaw as an offensive coordinator, that is great. He doesn't have any of the fatal flaws that you can't iron out. And so Will Stein will be going to Kentucky as their new head coach. Once a Duck, always a Duck. So I wish him nothing but the best and absolute success in his future endeavors. So as of next year, we will be losing Will Stein as our offensive coordinator. I've seen, obviously, all day seeing crazy, not crazy in terms of the logic and reasonableness of it, but crazy amounts of rumors surrounding Brian Hartline being the new OC, potentially, or most likely. But we don't know that yet. It's not official. And what else is not completely official is Tosh Lupoi going to Cal, but it's all but official. And we sort of touched on this last week, last episode, that Tosh was likely going to Cal. And now it seems all said and done without being on paper official just yet. Also, if he ends up, and I say if very loosely because it's obviously likely to happen, I am very happy for Tosh Lupoi as well. Stein, he played at Louisville, so Kentucky's rival. But he grew up in Kentucky, so he's sort of going home. But Tosh Lupoi for sure, because he played at Cal and coached for a while at Cal, and then eventually went to Alabama, Washington, and then ended up at Oregon. And he's finally back home where he grew up, playing for the team that he grew up watching, and then ended up playing for in college, and he is back to head coaching his hometown team. What a dream that is. I mean, seriously, we all thought that was going to be the case for Helfrich. Unfortunately, he wasn't as good of a coach as Dan Lanning will say. Tosh Lupoi is going to be, again, he, like I said at the beginning of this year, is on a warming seat, not a warm seat and not a hot seat, but he had some similar flaws as Stein on the defensive side. But as we're seeing, it was like we all speculated the past couple years that it may have just been he didn't have the exact roster that he needed yet to have his vision come to full fruition, because he has done a crazy good job this year compared to the last couple years running the defense. And he's a great recruiter. And obviously he has roots in the West Coast. So unfortunately, that's going to be a recruiting battle now against Tosh for Lanning. But I honestly, for Will Stein as well, but for Tosh, I could not be happier for him. Like, seriously, what a dream. I think every kid's dream in Oregon, in Eugene, was growing up in Eugene as a Duck fan, playing for the Ducks, and then eventually coaching the team. Like, that is the trifecta of the ultimate dream for the kids in Corvallis. It was the same for Oregon State. Good luck to Tosh in his future endeavors as well. And we wish him nothing but the best and success. And I think the potential replacement for him will be Rashad Samples, so Oregon will be hiring from within. And most fans, and especially for Duck fans in particular, we've always been sort of traumatized, if you will, by coaches who leave and coaches who stay, and players who leave and players who stay, because sometimes the success of a season was built on one guy, whether it was a coach or a player. And so some people were sort of freaking out and panicking that we're losing our coordinators next year because, again, the programs handled it well. It was good luck in your future endeavors after the season. Are you willing to finish out this season? The coaches say, yes, we have a chance to finish out this season strong and do a smooth transition to our new jobs. Excellent. Let's do this. We'll see you around the building until you leave, and we will send you flowers on your way out. Fantastic. That is how you handle it. Especially with a team that's having success. So we're still going to have Tosh for the postseason. We're still going to have Stein for the postseason. Good with the bad on both of those, but overall, still good. It'll give time to also train the new coordinators coming in on how things work at Oregon as well, depending on when each of those guys leave. So it's not a right away thing. Our season isn't over, and even if they left today, it would not still be over. So that is good news. This is overall, though, good news for Oregon as a program. And that's because Dan Lanning is now creating his own coaching tree. This is a good thing overall. It would be bad if the Ducks' coaching tree was a stump, where they never leave, the program sort of struggles, or they never leave because these coaches aren't having the success that they should be happening. But these guys are building themselves to be head coach ready, and it is largely also because of the program, but specifically Dan Lanning, the head coach. Nick Saban's coaching tree is all over the country in college football. That is what makes him the greatest of all time coach, aside from his in-program success. at Michigan State, building them up in the 90s, but realizing the ceiling there, winning a title at LSU, and then winning multiple titles and creating a dynasty at Alabama. Alabama did not lose a step when guys like Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart and all them left Kirk Cincinnati. They branched out and created success at other programs. You want your head coach creating a tree like that. That is a good thing. That says a lot about the reputation and the development of the coaching tree at the program that head coach is in command of. And it tells you what type of head coach that coach is, that he builds leaders and he builds programs not only at home. And sustaining that success at home obviously is the most important part. But Oregon has had a bit of a history of building a coaching tree. John Madden took off as a coach in the 60s and 70s at Oregon. John Madden, the John Madden. So this is an overall good thing that this is happening. This is not detrimental to the program that these coordinators are leaving. Sure, there might be some learning curves and things such as that in the coming years, but overall this is a good sign of the health of a program. This is a good indicator of a healthy program. That coaches are being developed and sent out to be head coaches, and hopefully successful head coaches when they leave. This is a great thing overall for the program and for Dan Lanning as a coach in terms of his reputation as a coach, his ability to not only coach players but other coaches. And we will also get to see the next man up, whether it's an outside hire or within the house hire for the coaches. And this also tells you how trustworthy and how good that guys like Dan Lanning, the AD at Oregon, the general manager at Oregon are at talent eval on the coaching side too, not just the players. With the high success rate that coaches have had after they've left Oregon and under Dan Lanning's leadership, and the more success that the bigger tree, the coaching tree, says a lot about Dan Lanning and his development of coaches as a whole. Kenny Dillingham, we were all very sad that he left, but he too went to his alma mater, and look where it got him. His first year as a coach with basically Cam Scattaboo starting the rebuild process. They were supposed to be the last in the Big 12. They won the Big 12, and then they went to the college football playoff, and they gave Texas a hard time in their game. They could have won that game. That is Kenny Dillingham under Dan Lanning, who left and spread his wings and became someone. Who was it again? What was his name? Carlos Lachlan? Didn't really leave Oregon on great terms, but he left. I don't really think it was because of Lanning. I think it was because of the athletic department. But coached under Lanning, became a coach at Ohio State, obviously won a national championship last year with Ohio State. Now we will see Tosh, Lupoi, and Will Stein. We can see what they can do. And everyone is saying that guys like Samples, Alik Terry, all these assistant coaches, Rashad Wadood, all these assistant coaches could easily be coordinators and then eventually head coaches under Dan Lanning in due time as well. And the ability to replace, though, keeps building that tree and keeps the in-program sustainability going. I think this is an overall good thing, and this is also why I am excited for Will Stein and for Tosh Lupoi going into the future. How cool would it be if Will Stein was able to build Kentucky into something as a football program and in the SEC, and bringing Cal back to a team of what they used to be with Tosh Lupoi and a hometown guy. That there's no better story than that. So this is exciting. The Ducks' future is still exciting. I know a lot of people's concerns, though, were about recruiting because Will Stein, but especially Tosh Lupoi, are crazy good recruiters. But with Dan Lanning being a very good recruiter, that's got to be something that is going into his talent eval when he is looking to hire new coordinators or move them from below in-house. I don't think the recruiting is going to suffer greatly, unlike Penn State, what's happening right now with their recruiting. It's not going to suffer that deeply because Tosh and Stein are leaving. That's not to denigrate what Tosh and Stein have done for Oregon and for Oregon recruiting. It's it's not mutually exclusive to you internet autists out there. It's not a zero-sum game. Two things can be true at once. And it's just going to be a standard that is going to have to be part of the hiring process for the new guys coming in. And I trust Dan Lanning and the ADs and the GMs to see that and make that decision. And with the current performance of the past coaches, that is where that trust has been built. So, still exciting for this year. Still exciting for the next years and the next 4 or 5 seasons to come. Still should be an exciting run in Oregon college football. And I look forward to the rest of this season and the postseason and the seasons ahead and of the news ahead regarding that in the near future. But I don't think I don't think recruiting is necessarily going to take a huge hit. Plus, when all is said and done, do we, as fans especially, but even as the coaches, do we really have that much say in what 17, 18, 19-year-old people do in terms of choosing where to recruit? You can make a good sales pitch to put it all in your favor, but if I remember how I was at 18, 19, they changed their minds a lot. And things change over time very quickly, much quicker than even now when you're in your 20s and 30s. So, and by the end of the day, you have your roster that you have. And there are obviously things you can do to help with that. But you still, at the end of the day, don't have control over that. You just have control over what's on the practice field and on the game field with you in that regard. But I trust the Oregon system. I trust the coaches, and specifically Dan Lanning. And I think it should all be fun moving forward.